Tri-City and around the world. Welcome to another episode of Chicago's ILLectuals podcast. I am the Kid Rod Allen, and today we're very fortunate to have Andre and Frances Guichard of Gallery Guichard. Welcome. How are you?
Man, we are doing great, brother. So happy to be on the podcast.
Fantastic. And I love your introduction. It's so energetic.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, let's jump right into it if you don't mind. Is that okay?
I love it.
Let's talk a little bit about your background, schools you went to, neighborhoods you grew up in, and any other pertinent information. Starting with you, Andre.
Thank you, Alan. And once again, happy to be on board. I'm just a Southside kid who is also a dreamer from the Rosemore community, 104th and Rhodes, went to St. John Grammar School, Mendel Catholic Prep High School, Illinois State University. But we grew up in I call a special village. A lot of young, intelligent, athletic, competitive men to be in my neighborhood. It had to be at least 15 kids running around every day. Football, baseball. I wrestled, ended up becoming city champion in my weight class. And that competitive spirit, I think, is a big part of my journey personally and our journey in always believing everything is possible and being a dreamer like that, but also growing up in a house where my father painted and sculpted. So I grew up in a house with an artist. 2 doors down from me was another artist, Cheryl Stallings. She taught at one of the local high schools. So it was an environment that you really could dream, but you could also see real life examples of people who were doing things. Rush Ewing, newscaster, lived on our block. Just around the corner, the Staple Singers lived on our block. So, you know, it was a great neighborhood, but that really spawned creativity that I didn't know I had. And it really came out and presented itself after I graduated from college. Even though I went to college wanting and knowing I was creative and maybe I could be an artist, my dad, while he painted and sculpted, he was into business. He was a real estate broker and a programmer. So I didn't have an example of a professional artist. So I did what came naturally and I got good grades in, which is economics. So I actually have a degree in economics from Illinois State University. Fast forward, started working in corporate America and still had a passion for art. I wanted to decorate my home and I just started creating art for my personal residence. And it was then that people started saying, you know, you're pretty good, started buying art off the wall. I gave a challenge to myself and said, if I ever could sell as much as my day job, I would quit. And I didn't think it would happen, honestly, but it took about 8 years and it happened. So then I was confronted with what we call the golden handcuffs of insurance, a good job, a paycheck. But I chose to take the leap of faith, partly because my motivation had pretty much gone away after I realized I could make a living selling my art. So after that, I shortly met my beautiful wife and business partner, life partner, and presented an option for us to open the business together, Gallery Guichard. And 20 years later now, we are still on top of the world, creating platforms for artists of the African diaspora and collectors to meet. So that's my story.
Oh my God, extraordinary.
Thank you.
Extraordinary. And congratulations on your 20-year anniversary, the 20th anniversary of Gallery Guichard, correct?
Yes, and our marriage. So
man, a double treat. A double treat. Congratulations again.
Yes.
Frances, give us a little bit about your background. Where were you raised? What schools did you go to? How was your neighborhood? How was your childhood?
Well, let me just start by saying that I had the most amazing childhood, and it was a fun time. I grew up in Chatham, or Chatham Grand Crossing neighborhood. I started out at Tanner, which had, Henry Tanner was an artist. And so we always had art in our school in the hallways. And so whether they were original pieces or not, I didn't know, but we were always surrounded by beautiful artwork. And then I was inspired by my sister-in-law, who was a teacher. She actually painted as a teacher because, she had a little artistic ability, and just found out, she just passed away, that she was painting even later on in life, and her daughter has all her beautiful large paintings in her home. So she inspired me to enjoy art. My father was a photographer, and so he had a dark room, and he would then take pictures and develop the pictures in the dark room. And so that was an inspiration to me as well. But my mom, she was a seamstress, and so she would create clothing and make clothing for all of us, and then make her own designs. But she and my sister-in-law would get together, and with both their artistic abilities, travel around and experience, art in various people's homes. So we would go, they moved to Lincoln, Nebraska, my mom and my sister-in-law both, and my brother. And they would go to homes, and we would look around the homes and see beautiful artwork, collect antiques. And, it was just so inspiring. They traveled to the Louvre, so they inspired me even more to kind of know and get to understand art. And I grew up in a neighborhood that had an art gallery. So, how many Black galleries do growing up? So I was able to go to the store and then stop in the art gallery and just marvel at the amazing artwork. And I'm sure a lot of the artists were there. I just didn't know who they were at the time,
Right.
until you hear about it later, and like, oh, I knew that artist. So like Annie Lee. And it was just a spectacular time. I went to Unity Catholic High School. Yes, Unity. And then I, from there, went to Northern Illinois University, where I pledged Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, pink and green. And I'm very proud to be in the sorority and have met so many amazing people. And then later, I got my master's in public health. So I was in public health before I met Andre, and I loved art, but I wasn't an artist at that time. And then when I met Andre 21 years ago, I would be on our dates, dabble in his artwork and his paints and his canvases, and just start making things. And he was like, nah. Get back. So I was like, okay, this is fun. Let me just do this. Just keep going back at it. And so he taught me, the use of color, and how to make sure the colors complemented each other, how to make sure that, what was archival and what wasn't, and how to make sure your work was archival, and the importance of creating not just art, but fine art, and truly doing something that you love, not that something someone else was doing. So we would travel around the country, going to New York and the Black Fine Art Show. I would see artists there with amazing work, and I would just walk around and just, truly amazed by the talent that I saw and the creativity. And I would just, come back to my own studio again and start painting. And then all of a sudden, Andre was like, let's take this to Florida. So I took my artwork to Florida, and I was able to sell everything in Florida. Oh, no, let me back up. The first time I did it, it was in his studio. They were doing an auction, and the artists were all putting their works up for auction. And Andre was like, oh, that's a really nice piece. It was a floral piece. And he's like, let's do something else to it. And then I signed it, and he signed it, and then we put it together. So it was like a collaboration, but I did all the work basically. So we put it out there, and it started out at, I think it was $300 for auction. and it ended up bidding at $800, and people were going crazy over it. I'm like, oh my gosh. So ever since then, I've been painting. And then he says, let's take your work to Florida. People were buying the work in Florida. And then after that, I continued to grow and to take my work to the next level, paying attention to detail. And then I started to, he said, I have one piece left, put it in the gallery. Let's see what happens. I put it in the gallery and it sold immediately. And I've been painting ever since. So because of this man and all of the experiences I've had in my childhood and my family, I've been able to really do some wonderful things and touch people with my art. And it's all about, you know, truly embracing the love of art and helping people to feel good about what they receive. But there's also a message and a story in my artwork too. So I wanted people to know about our travels to Africa. We've traveled to Africa 14 times, 11 countries, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more too. But our first trip was to South Africa. And when we stepped off the plane, I felt an immediate kinship to the continent, to the country, and just, you know, understanding, seeing all African people, not a lot of white people. But then as we traveled in, because of South Africa, we did see more white people, but it's okay. It's just all about being able to connect with people, though, who look like you, that were doing things in high government, in business and things like that. And so I wanted to tell the story about how my work resonated with the beginning of time, because we learned as we travel that African people started science, math, engineering, religion, you name it, culture, everything. And everything was built on top of that. So that's my art. And I really love doing what I do. And I'm very, very blessed to have met Andre to be able to do it with. And here we are 20 years later, doing it, still doing it, having fun doing it. It's just amazing. God is good. I think he brought us together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say that the ancestors, the creator, definitely had a hand in this kinship, this relationship, this partnership, and it's beautiful. Both of you, you have such fascinating stories, individually and collectively, right? I want to ask you this, Frances. What are your values?
My values are first and foremost God, or spiritual, you know, and because there's something that brought us here. We know we have a purpose, and family. Family is very important. I think, you know, everything we do around family. And if you can do it together, then you can make anything happen. Nothing's perfect, but if you work hard at it, you can make it happen and then build something that will resonate and ripple around the world.
Absolutely. Andre, same question. What are your values?
You know, we're similar in God first. I believe if you ask anything you're doing, God or whoever you believe in is a higher power, the chances are close to 100% if you really are in tune with your mind and spirituality. Family, you know, I think we all have a chance with our families to work together. And I think growing up, my dad was an entrepreneur, and my mom always said, you know, you have to work with people. You can do a lot by yourself. And individually, we were doing great things as individuals who were single, but the power of a union and working with someone, I mean, we're in a very effective team, and we have a very effective team of people we work with, but it was that initial partnership and working together. So I also believe in family and community and the power of family and community. And then lastly, giving first. You know, in the world of everybody wants something, I think as a Sagittarian, but as a personal person, I'm always trying to think about how we can give first. And we also have a nonprofit that has given now $70,000 to local nonprofits in Bronzeville to help kids. And just the joy of giving is really a part of who we are also. But then that's also part of our gallery foundation. We represent 50 artists from around the world, around the country. And I get as much joy in selling our artist work as I get when I sell one of my original works or Frances' original work. So I think those three things really kind of express who morally I am, and similarly who we are together. We have very similar morals.
Andre, where did you get your early mindset? Who was some of your influences when you started to become interested in art?
So first and foremost, my dad, Alfred Guichard. He was an amazing artist, an amazing businessman, just a very intelligent person. But as a young artist, because I'm self-taught as an artist, even though I went to college, I realized working part-time that I was at a disadvantage of most of my colleagues who were full-time artists and had all day in the studio to think about work and that whole thing. So I really threw myself into a space of being willing to volunteer. And Dale Washington was a fellow artist and curator who is now deceased, that very early on in my career, I moved around and learned curation from him. There was another artist, Henry. He was an abstract artist. He's since moved, but I watched a lot of what he did. But then Samuel Kenya of Ghana was at that time an artist who had achieved in the late 80s, early 90s success, partly because he understood the power of sponsorship. And he had a gallery downtown, and BMW would have their cars outside of his opening. So I noticed then that that was different than most other artists or museums who were driven by grants and nonprofits. So that understanding of the role of corporations in art were very integral in a different path than most artists. And now, of course, having worked with many multinational and top 100 companies in the world, it is very important, the collaborations that we've been able to achieve, whether it's Walgreens, Bacardi, several of the local law firms and so forth. But that inspiration of seeing other artists do things. And then as a creative, you know, I think all artists take a little bit of everything they see and find their own fingerprint. And that has also been my story as well, from my dad through a host of other artists that I've been in contact with, to kind of evolve my own fingerprint.
Great. Frances, where did you get your mindset? Who were some of your earliest influences?
Well, I have to say, you know, initially I took classes too in college for art history, art, you know, the study of art. Everybody did that, I think. And, you know, you saw very few African Americans being featured in most of the conversations around art there. So Monet was one of my my favorites of European artists. But I also was very influenced by a lot of some of the African Americans that they talked about, which was the Henry Tanner, which was one of them, and he studied in Europe. But we also had other artists that, you know, I don't remember all the names, but I remember the work. And so a lot of Cubism that they showcased, and they talked about how Pablo Picasso on his deathbed said he took his influence from African art, because African art is based on Cubism, a lot of it. And so when I met Andre, I met a lot of artists that I didn't know did work, because most of my experience was around the work of European artists. And so now I was able to meet artists like Abiola Akintola, and he works in Cubism, but his work is so amazing. It's textural, it has color, it has, you know, just the energy, and it's all about love. So Abiola Akintola is one of my earliest artists that I was very influenced by. Also, I would have to say Ebenezer, which is another artist, and these artists are from Nigeria. So I just love the work of Nigerian artists. I feel as though they are truly connected to the spirit of people, love, energy, family, and all the things that I love about art. And we also have artists here at the gallery that I think also influenced me because, you know, as you work with artists, you get influenced by each other. Yeah. So Pearlie Taylor, who is 82 years old, and she is constantly creating amazing work. She works in abstract, non-objective abstract art, and she'll use a mop or a broom or a ruler or a pencil, whatever she can that's unconventional, an unconventional tool to create her work, and it's beautiful. Stephen Olalekan, he's another artist that we work with that is young, but he has a diverse fingerprint where you can find him doing charcoal that doesn't smear because he uses a process that allows it to adhere to the canvas, but it's beautiful. Women, men, and the eyes follow you. So it's, you know, really beautiful. And then he also has a three-dimensional kind of textural sculptural pieces that go on to a canvas. And they're either made with flexible material that hardens and becomes part of the sculpture on the canvas, or he'll use different materials on his canvas. So, you know, artists influence each other, continuously influenced by each other day to day as we continue to help promote and push each other to higher heights.
Thank you so much for that. This has been tremendously good, so informational. Andre, you grew up as an athlete. How much did the discipline that it takes to be a star athlete play into your future vision of becoming an artist and owning a gallery?
You know, I can't say enough about that and how important I think that is as a young person, and being blessed to be in a village of so many talented individuals. I mean, Rodney Hawkins, basketball, Tyree Fleming, basketball, football, Craig Walker, basketball, football, Robert Walker, basketball, football, Daryl Dennis, wrestling, basketball, football. I mean, I could go on, and these are just kids from the block. Yeah. And all of them came in different builds, but I can guarantee you we were all running from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day from 5 to 18. And for me, I became a champion wrestler because I would wrestle everybody in the neighborhood every day. To where it got to the point if somebody had some nice clothes on, they would say, Andre, do not wrestle me today. I have on some nice shoes, a nice pair of pants. And I'd be like, okay, you're off limits then. Thank you for telling me that.
You're past today.
You're past. But that training, wrestling with guys 50 pounds, 100 pounds heavier than me, when I got to the wrestling mat, it was cakewalk. It was easy work. But that discipline of failing and getting up, failing forward, failing and getting up until you reach your goal is the same problem solving that happens in business every day. And I think being an athlete, you become a problem solver because you want to win. So you figure out, why didn't you win? Okay, just like a coach after a football game, they play the tape. That is what being and growing up in an athletic environment like we had the privilege did for me. And I feel that that is an important, huge part of that. And then wrestlers have I think, a very special kind of upbringing because you're on a team, but for those 3-minute periods, you're by yourself and you got to figure it out. And the intensity is so intense that every wrestler I know who continued in wrestling, college, and Olympics, we all have this same kind of mantra of we can do anything. And even though we may not become professional wrestlers, that instinct of being an athlete is what is, you're an athlete in business. And I think that's what we are as entrepreneurs.
Extraordinary, man. We're about to talk about Gallery Guichard, but Andre, I want to ask you something. What does the flying fish mean to you?
Whoa, wow. Get out of here. Dang. Well, the flying fish was one of my very first paintings, and it means freedom, and it's, what that represented in nature, the flying fish coming out of their environment now in the air. But it also meant creativity, because it was a style of art that I was painting on glass and mirror. Mm-hmm. And it was a very incredible style because it would bring you into the art. You'd see yourself, and it was oil on mirror. But that piece, Flying Fish, wow, you went back on me, really was part of what I look for when we look for artists: creativity, who's doing something different, and how I personally try to still push myself to look for mediums and do things a different way than everybody else is doing. And I think those are the fingerprints that have helped me to be able to sell and be in over 3,500 collections around the world, around the country. And I think Flying Fish was the birth of creativity for me as an artist. And believe it or not, it's a style that I moved away from, because sometimes in the world of fine art, mediums like mirror have a life of 25 or 50 years, where oil on canvas, acrylic on canvas, those can last hundreds and hundreds of years. So I actually stepped away from that medium, but in hindsight, I probably should reapproach that medium that I was working in, where Flying Fish was done with oil on mirror, then sealed under glass. So it was still archival because I sealed it. But I got afraid as a young artist, because sometimes you can do things that are so different that it might scare you to think that, maybe this is too different than what everybody else is doing, or before its time. But it definitely was before its time. And it's something that may cause me to go back, now that you mentioned it, to that style. But thank you for going back in deep. And curiously, how do you know about Flying Fish?
So to me, first of all, thank you for that. But to me, Flying Fish is the epitome of freedom of expression.
Wow. Thank you.
And we have some friends who are in our circles that know the both of us. I'll just say that.
Wow.
And a few of my friends actually grew up with you. For instance, I was wondering, how does a kid end up on his roof with canvas on the grass, splattering paint down onto the canvas from his roof? And my question to you is, what was the discussion like with your parents to even get there and carry that out?
Well, what was even funnier, I decided I wasn't going to tell them.
Oh my goodness.
We, as wild kids, had been on that roof before. So it was nothing for me to get on the roof. And it was easy to carry my materials and supplies onto the top of the house and position the canvas on the ground. The funny story is, when my parents came home, I was already on the roof, at the edge of the roof. So they were more terrified, thinking something happened where I'm about to commit suicide, because I'm on top of the roof when they come home. And it wasn't until they see me dropping paint from the top of the roof to the backyard that they were like, oh, he's creating art. But I was more curious into things like gravity and how gravity could affect the way that the paint interacts with the canvas. And for many, many years, I would create my future studios based on the fact of how high could I get and could I position some canvas down below.
Yeah.
And even there was the Cotton Club, as you may remember, the famous Cotton Club.
Yes.
My first professional studio was 3 doors down, and it had an elevator shaft that I would take a painting and put at the bottom of the elevator shaft via the freight elevator and drop paint from the 5th story of that floor. So the funny thing about that first creative experience of using my parents' home as my studio test ground, I continued to go places and use gravity to create background effects that I couldn't create with my own touch or even the velocity of my hand. And again, you're taking me back. I might need to get on the top of this building.
Cool, brother.
We go back.
One last question for you. One last question for you. We're going to move on to Frances. So, can you explain to the audience what a bust is?
Yes. A bust is probably from your waist up. Okay. And dang, you really are going there. And there was a series of busts that I would do from Mannequin Bus, and then I would add things to it, add canvas to it, and create abstractions from those busts. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure if that's, dang, you are really going back, what you're referencing. But, you know, taking something that has a definition and redefining it. There was a series of mannequins that I did for a period of time where I would do my normal 3-dimensional style with sculpting, molding paste, and creating textures and 3-dimensionality, and then painting those, which mannequins, busts, were all part of that creativity. But, you know, just trying to think of different things that someone else isn't doing or hasn't done in my sphere is part of where that happens. But that's the beauty of being self-taught. You don't know what the boundaries are supposed to be, and you allow your mind to just say, I can see this, now how can I put it into reality? And I think that is the freedom of expression.
Wow. Let's talk about Gallery Guichard. Frances, what was it specifically that inspired Gallery Guichard?
Well, there's a couple of things I have to say that, you know, Gallery Guichard being Guichard was Andre's first impetus to create something that was special in the community, to fill a void that where there wasn't places like this for African-American artists to come and be able to showcase their works. So I'm sure he'll talk about that a little bit more, but I think, you know, when we came together, we both talked about how we wanted to do, go into business and do something that would change the community and give artists a place to showcase their work. And, you know, I was inspired by my brother to want to be in business. Like I said, I grew up in Chatham, where we saw Black businesses all throughout the, you know, community. People who owned the businesses were your neighbors and people that you knew. So my brother, he owned car dealerships in Texas, and it was an inspiration to me. He also owned a gas station. So for me to want to be a business owner as well. And when I met Andre, he proposed to me, not only proposed to me marriage, but also proposed to me the opportunity to leave my job. I was the director of a program for the city of Chicago, where I managed, you know, close to 100 people, 16,000 food establishments. And, you know, it was an opportunity for me to take my skill, my desires, and my love for Andre and fuse it all together and become a gallerist. And our first gallery was located at 35th and King Drive, 3521 South King Drive.
Yes.
And along with another business partner, Stephen Mitchell, we were able to get something started that blew up. And Andre brought a cadre of artists as well as clients to the first initial opening of Gallery Guichard. And I would work my day job and then in the evening come to work with Andre in the gallery. And then I had 5 years in a dream, and the dream was a leap of faith. I dreamed that I was traveling through a cave and on a tour, looking at stalactites and stalagmites, and then, we're all looking around in awe of the beauty of these caves. And then we get to the end, and I turn around to look at something, and everybody was gone. Wow. So it left me alone, feeling like, what do I do? How do I get back? Do I turn back and try and go back the way I came? I might get lost. But if I keep going, I figure something out, then, what did they do? They jumped. So yeah. I took a leap of faith and I jumped over a cliff that took you down into buoyancy water, brought me back up. I swam to the shore and there was a gift shop. And believe it, in this dream, this is real. In the dream was Andre, the gift shop. In the gift shop was Andre. So that told me God was sending me a message. I brought you a gift. Take it. Leave your job. Take a leap of faith. Because everybody kept telling me, don't quit your day job. Don't quit. Somebody needs to have a paycheck. No, I took that leap of faith. And here we are today, 20 years later, we're still doing it. Really? So, it's important sometimes to feel as though, you don't have to do what everybody else is doing. You can do, if you really are passionate about what you do, you can make something work. You can build something great. And if you know you've got God behind you, there's nothing you can't do.
Amazing. Simply amazing. And let me just stop right here to tell you guys that you are a few of our Black superheroes. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I'm not just spewing rhetoric here. The year is about 2008, 2009. I'm the executive director of a youth program in the Washington Park area, and we need a venue to hold our black tie event. I'm talking to one of my high school buddies, Rodney Hawkins, and he gives me the number of Andre Guichard, right? And we worked the deal out. We ended up having a very elegant black tie affair for our youth program at Gallery Guichard when it was on 35th and King Drive. And I will come back and give you an update from time to time, Andre. But what you didn't know is during that period when we had the youth program up and running, every other Saturday, we would charter buses and we would take those youth on Black business owners tours around the city, right? Yeah. So not only did we get to hold a black tie affair for the youth program in a Black-owned art gallery, right? But the gallery owner was walking through with us, right? You were interacting with our young people, right? And I'll have you know that many of those young people are doing very well today. As a matter of fact, probably about 3 or 4 of them have come back and been on the podcast with us, right? And so you've been doing the work in the community for a minute. Do you remember that, sir?
I'm going to say I don't remember, but I know that is our passion. Giving back, being an example, showing people like what they can do, because this beautiful edifice came to being without having an example. So we always have said, and I know I repeat, if you can see this, what you can create, is sky is the limit. Because a lot of times, we come from a time where imagination was a big deal. We didn't have the video games, and it was all let's make something out of sticks. let's fix our bike with sticks and shrubbery or whatever's there, wire. So that's very uplifting, and it is why we do what we do, work as hard as we do, because that means a lot.
So this event had Benny's as a sponsor. We had one of the banks that's no longer operational match any accounts that parents started for their children up to $250. We had waiters and waitresses walking around with trays of hors d'oeuvres, and you walked up to me after the event. You said, "This is a very nice event." And ironically, you know, I went to CVS High School, and many of the people who supported us, probably about 60 of them, were from CVS. Now you fast forward to the upcoming event that we're having at Gallery Guichard, and it's a CVS event. So here's my next question. What makes the aesthetics of Gallery Guichard so welcoming to elegant happenings in the place? I mean, you have a lot of events going on in the place, and I'm hearing about them all the time, but I'm super busy, so I'm not able to make as many as I would like. But what makes the aesthetics of the gallery such a welcoming place for upscale parties?
You know, I'll say first and foremost, any event that we are at, we make it our mission to try to touch every single person. Yeah. Hello, how are you doing? This is who we are. Happy to have you. And part of that is the ongoing stigma of galleries that are cold and not welcoming, and assume if you don't know who all the artists are, you're not worth talking to. And we feel just the opposite, that education is simply irreplaceable. But more importantly, the gallery has never been the same for 30 days in 20 years. And that is every single month, between 30 and 60 days, we take out 50 to 70 pieces and replace it with 50 to 70 new pieces. So this isn't like any place that, while many people can say, "Oh yeah, I've been there before," but if you ever have come back, it's different, because there's another exhibit by an original artist, a living artist from the African diaspora, either from Africa, around the country, and those works speak, the energy speaks. So it speaks to the environment. And, you know, we believe that our ice is just as cold as the ice downtown.
That's right.
Elegance isn't north of Roosevelt Road. Elegance is where you create it. And we truly believe we are elegant people. We come from the first kings and queens, and that is in our blood. And it's in everybody's blood who comes through the door. And we just want to remind each other of who we are as individuals. And we try to present that in how we present the space. Is it clean? Is it well lit? Are the works amazing? Are people touching you as though they're us? And, you know, all of those things and more are part of what I think has made the experience great for many people. And we really strive to continue that with constantly finding new artists. And, you know, we're in the business of importing rare art that is hard to find and hard to get to. And now those 14 trips to different parts of Africa have meant we, on each of those trips, connect with an artist on the ground in each country and find original work and artists in studios that we bring that work back and present it to our community, so they understand we're not different. We're all one big Pan-African diaspora of amazingly talented people with a history before slavery.
Wow. Wow. Frances, the wealthy from outside of our culture have traditionally invested in art for the preservation and appreciation of wealth associated with it, right? In your world travels, are you finding that those of African descent are catching on to this sentiment?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, when we meet people, let me just start here in the United States. I feel that people embrace their culture and, art speaks volumes, not just from the artist, but also the viewer. So if you're the viewer, you get an opportunity to see more than just a beautiful piece of artwork, but also a story behind the art. So I think people are embracing the art and really connecting to it and are using this as an opportunity to tell these stories, not only to their guests, but also just to live with it on a regular basis, to understand who they are and their culture. When we travel outside of the continent of the United States, we also connect with people in Africa and Brazil and Cartagena and places that we visited, because these are places where the diaspora is. And so the diaspora is spread out all over the world. As you know, we started everything. And when we moved out all over the world 10,000 years ago, Black people are in various places, and they also have, create artwork as well. And so we've been able to tap into places that most people don't necessarily get an opportunity to go to, and be able to, connect with art in those spaces. Lots of times what you'll see is art that is very complementary or similar in the way they do things, because it's innate or inherent in the way we create. And they are embracing art and being able to use that as a way of connecting with people around the stories within those locations. One of the places that we just recently visited was Indonesia. And you would think that Indonesia would have people of color, but they do. People with wide noses, brown skin, and they create art. And their art has a lot of semblances that connect back to Africa. Our work, sometimes you'll find an artist here in the United States that has created work, and it looks like a piece of art that we saw in Africa, but they've never met and they've never really worked together. And it's not something that they saw online, but it's inherent in them, the way they create. And when we went to Africa, we met a myriad artists, that have different fingerprints, but also collectors who collect their work and who are using the work to create value for the artists, as well as uplifting, their collections. So, we, I think, around the world understand the importance of art because we started art. And I think that, it's also something that Europeans enjoy and love. And so they have been collecting our work too. So we try to make sure that we educate people on the importance of collecting art by African people of African descent, to be able to understand their culture, but also our culture and our values and the investment that we give to ourselves and to the artists.
Yes.
And if you don't mind, I'd also like to coattail on that, because too often as a community, we don't talk about the appreciation of our art and our artists and the investment. As Black people, we figured out the stock market, we figured out housing, but many of us still have not figured out that you can pass on wealth and culture by collecting original art. And particularly because we are a fine art gallery, brick and mortar, appraisers call us for values. And we keep very clear records, and we can tell you one artist after another whose works have appreciated, 2, 3, 4 times, 5 times more. And you as the collector retain that appreciation in the property that you own, no different than your house.
Yes.
Similar to your house, art is archival, meaning it will last as long or longer than your house. A typical home may not last 100 years. Some may last 200, 300. Fine art definitely does last 200, 300, 400 years. We've been in places, Ethiopia, and we've seen paintings of the Last Supper painted by artists depicting us as the subjects.
Yes.
Jesus, Black disciples. But I say all that to say, this is something that we need to open our minds to educating ourselves about the different ways that fine art should be a part of your portfolio as a collector, as a investor, as a human being who understands culture is a part of and should be a part of your portfolio.
Whew. Oh, you guys have sent chills down my spine. I mean, we might have to do a part 2 because I just have so many questions and I don't want to take up too much of your time. What are you presently working on?
Right now, we're working on a lot of different things, yes. But one of the projects that we're very proud of is our Last Bridge program or Last Bridge exhibit. And we mentioned 14 times, 11 countries, but Zimbabwe was our last country on the continent of Africa that we visited. And we actually were able to bring back 150 life-size, monumental size stone sculptures. And it's called Shona art because it's a tribe, the Shona tribe, that for over 100 years has been passing down the style of art that an artist does to his son, and then the next generation. But all of the material, all of the stones can only be found in the mountains of Zimbabwe. Let me say that again. The only place that you can get this material that they carve from are the mountains of Zimbabwe. So each sculpture is a piece of Africa that you're able to put in your home, and they represent family, love, things that we normally don't see in public art, and it can live outside, inside, and we're proud that close to 50% of those sculptures have already found homes around the country, throughout Chicago, and it just makes us proud. So if you drive by the gallery now, you will see monumental sculptures outside in front of the gallery, in the Great Migration Sculpture Garden, throughout the gallery as part of a permanent exhibit. So continuing to showcase that important part, which sculpture is now a permanent part of what we do in addition to the fine art. And, that's just one of them. But monthly, we also understand the importance of community. So we have several offerings throughout the year, through the summer. The Artini monthly networking event, which has been inspired by our travels, where, everybody has an opinion about Africa and that it's a third world, these are third world countries. But we would come back and say, we didn't see any shooting, hear any shooting or any violence. There were no sirens going off. While they told us we should be afraid for our lives, nothing ever happened. Everybody doesn't live in huts. But then when they would gather, it would generally always be multi-generational gatherings, young, old, middle-aged. And we said, surrounded with music and culture, we want to bring that. So Artini is a monthly event. It's every second Thursday of the month. And it is a multi-generational, multicultural gathering and a layering of culture. So whatever exhibit is coming up, it's a preview or it allows you another chance to see it. But it also is fine art. It's a DJ who is meshed with a musician. So we have a music curator, Isaiah Collier, famous saxophonist and flautist. He either comes himself, which this Thursday he's coming himself, or he curates a musician that actually plays with 106.3 DJ Malik Shabazz. Then we layer that with live entertainment. So you have music, poetry. I mean, it tantalizes your senses because you have all these layers of culture at one time. So we're excited about that, and the community loves it. They show up. They know it's a place for culture every month. And then during the summer, right now, we also have the Bronzeville Third Friday Art Trolley Tour, which it's called, but now it's might progress to where we have double-decker buses that go through Bronzeville. You can enjoy the amazing architecture of our community, and it takes you to 3 galleries in the neighborhood: Gallery Guichard, Blanc Gallery, Fay African Art, and then we open the artist studios on the 2nd and 3rd floor. So then again, you have another example of culture being presented to the neighborhood between June and September. And those are things that has been happening for 19 years, Artini for over 10 years, and continuously having programming is part of our ongoing goal. And then, of course, expanding and doing what we're doing around the country. We just started doing pop-up exhibits on the West Coast, and I had the great pleasure to reconnecting with Rodney Hawkins, one of your good friends too, from CVS, and the Hawkins family. And we created a platform like we do on the East Coast, on the West Coast, in Sacramento. And what we realize is a lot of places are cultural deserts, meaning we take advantage of what we had. We don't always take advantage of what we have because we have so much in Chicago. It's so much culture. Oh, I got that, I'll get to it, or I know it's there. But every place isn't like this. And when we bring our art and artists to these different cities, Sacramento, Oakland, Seattle, Los Angeles, they treat us similar to how musicians from the 30s and 40s said when they went to Europe, people would go crazy. I mean, they go crazy. 30, 50 pieces. I mean, it's not unusual for that volume of artwork to land in collectors' homes.
Yeah. Let me ask you. I was having a discussion with my good friend in Detroit, Courtney Brown Jr., and I was telling him how you guys would go around the country and you would hold these mini exhibits in the homes of some of your patrons, right? And I'm saying, Courtney, is that called an installation? But Courtney was the wrong person to ask. I'm asking you guys. What is that called?
It's a pop-up gallery where we do exhibitions around the country. We pop up and bring our artwork. We have a truck and a trailer and amazing artwork that we bring in. We set up walls and panels where, and everyone gets invited to come out and see artwork. As Andre said, there may be a desert that doesn't have the work there, so they get a chance to see different artists from a different location from around the world that we're able to bring. So yeah, installation is more of an art piece that is put into a exhibit or someone's home.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. This has been extremely educational. I know the audience is going to love it. And we're nearing the end here. I want to ask you guys, how important is mentorship for the young people who are watching?
Well, for the beginning of my career, I mentored from afar. People didn't know they were mentoring me sometimes because I may not have had the courage, but I was a clear and a good study of people who were doing things that inspired me. And I can go on, but this is not a 2-year overnight success. This is a 30-year overnight success. And I say that to say because, early on, I was just trying to learn. And then once I learned and understood curation, I realized that my love for people made me different. So I was an organizer of shows for my fellow artists. And I can remember Dejois Bistro. You might remember that old hot space back in the day. That was one of the first platforms that I understood very quickly. They had my target market, meaning professional executives after work. And by positioning myself around people I mentored, those business owners, I was able then to offer something they didn't have, which was amazing art, and started selling quickly, and then would move to their next location on Randolph. And then there was a gallery in between that space that gave me training. But then after that, it was the South Shore Cultural Center. And, you know, building there. So finding people in these places and spaces that inspire you, it was the mentorship that would happen. And then the director of the South Shore Cultural Center, Ife McWater, was a big influence as a mentor. And it has continued on and on. Our first big corporate project, Letha Gillespie, was a mentor for us to navigate a 7,000 store Walgreens contract. You cannot make it in this world without mentor, whether they tell you they're mentoring you or you mentor from afar. So I think it's extremely important.
Yes, and I would just add on to that, all those things Andre said are important, and those are some of the people that have helped us get to where we are today. And, you know, it's always good to pay it forward. And we have had young people work with us on a regular basis here at the gallery. So we've been able to provide mentorship. I think it's important for young people to listen and to learn. Sometimes you find people who think they might know everything, but then they don't always know everything. But we do have, I have to say, a wonderful team here that we're able to work with and mentor. We have a young lady coming in now. Her name is Maya Stewart. She started with us from in high school at South Shore, and now she's getting ready to go to UIC. She's also an artist. And so Maya is working with us on a regular basis, and we're so proud to have her because she listens and she's working to learn more about the business of art, but she's also going to school at UIC. Yeah.
Maya walked right in doing the mentorship question. How about that, right? Good luck to you, Maya. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too.
Yes, absolutely. Good luck to you. We're in full support of you. So, Frances, what do you read?
Well, I read a lot of things. So I read about our history. I like to read books that take me back to the beginning of time and help me to understand about the Moors, to help me understand about the continent of Africa. When I was little, I would go to there's a library. It's just a rudimentary little library that had a lot of books in it about Africa, and it was called the African Library. So on my way home from school, I would stop in there and look at the maps and read the books and just kind of get, information about who I am. Yeah. But now I still do that. And then I also read books that help me to better myself as an artist. I like to read things that are going to improve my mind, that will help me to relax and to meditate. So I think those are some of the things that I just love. And then I like to sometimes every once in a while find a romance too.
Okay.
I think that's a little bit different, and horror.
Yeah. Andre Guichard, what type of music do you listen to, brother?
Ooh. Oh my God. Well, coming from Chicago, I am a true house head.
And you went to Mendel, so.
And I went to Mendel. So, the fact that Farley Jackmaster Funk is going to be at your party,
yes,
we are trying to rearrange everything so we do not miss that, because that is the epitome of house music. And
yes.
Well, I love house music. I would also say I'm a world music lover because I appreciate and also love music from the continent, particularly Umpano music from South Africa. And when we were there last, I immersed myself into the shanties, which would be like in Brazil, the favelas, in our country, the low end, which this community would have been called, but because everybody looks like us, you're always welcome. And the music that I think they're creating in South Africa right now reminds me of the creativity of house music, of how we made something out of something that was there, but the way that it was done has lived on to this day. And Ampano music, reggae. I mean, I'm really a fan of all music, to be honest. But and even now, I'm a fan of Mbira music from Zimbabwe, because the Mbira instrument, which it was this last trip that I was aware, is one of the oldest instruments ever made. And when we were at an Mbira club, I'm sitting there listening, and I'm like, wait a minute, this sounds like house music. This sounds like hip hop. This sounds like rock and roll. This sounds like it sounds like all music, unlike in Jamaica, where you might hear a song, an American song that was made in America, but they remade it. These were songs in their native tongue.
Yeah.
In the way that, you can hear a sound and know, oh, that's house music or that's rock and roll. You heard all of our music in their music, and they didn't necessarily care or know that we've created something that sounds similar in America. So I've really become a fan of that type of music, because even though I had never heard it before, it just rang to my soul. Like I knew this music. And I think that's that spiritual connection that we all have to the continent, which is why we encourage travel to the continent, and just not just South Africa, because that's a nice country if you've never been, because there's a lot of modern things similar to America, but every country has a fingerprint, and every country is simply outstandingly amazing and truly a part of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been to the continent. I spent last December in Dakar, Senegal,
Nice.
Ghana, Kumasi. I visited probably 3 of the doors of no return. And so you've mentioned Africa throughout your interview, and every time you mention it, it warms my heart. It warms my heart, because I had some very special experiences over there, some very revealing experiences. Frances, give a message to the up-and-coming artists and those who aspire to own a gallery, young people in particular, as we move toward the end here.
Believe in yourself. I think it's important to understand who you are, what you want out of life, and where you want to go. Make a plan. Don't just wish or dream about it. Be about it.
Yes.
Plan together and make it happen. And use other people as examples, but don't be other people.
Right.
Be yourself. Be original. Be what you need to be to make your dream a reality. And use other people. Find your tribe. Find your friends. Find those people who love what you do, and work with them. It's a relationship building process, and you need other people. You can't work in a silo. You can't work alone. You need to be someone that works with other people and works with them well. And be true to yourself, so that when you do work with other people, you're honest, you're fair, and you're giving. It's so important to make sure that you are a good person, but a person that understands where they're going. And then no business. You can't do anything in the entrepreneur world without understanding this is a business. And you have to understand the whole gamut of operating and running a business, and make it happen.
Thank you so much for that. Here on Chicago's ILLectuals podcast, as we end our interviews, I always like to afford our guests the opportunity to tell a story of their choice. Today is no different. Give us a story of your choice as we close, Andre.
Ooh, that's a good one. And that's, wow. There's so many great stories of this journey that's probably the hardest question that you've asked me, because I'm trying to think on the level of, what can help your guests. But I'm going to give the story of Walgreens. And it was probably over 10 years ago, and it was right at the first recession. And we had been on a ride from when we opened, which seemed like endless customers, and kind of like that phone book commercial where you open a business and then the orders coming in and you really aren't even capable of handling the volume, but it's a good place to be. But then the recession hit, and the recession, that first recession was really about housing. And many of our customers were heavily invested in real estate. So just as that example of endless customers, you had crickets, because all those people who were invested in housing and were cash heavy were now upside down or worse. So in that same moment, we met an amazing collector who was in diversity at Walgreens, and we were doing a pop-up exhibit at the United Negro College Fund. And we were set up in the lobby, and it was a decent pop-up. We had broke even where we had covered our costs for being there, and we were starting to sell. And she was going to the bathroom and ran across our booth and said, "Oh my God, I can't believe you all are here. This art is amazing. How come nobody told me? The pieces I like are already sold. I'm gonna go tell them they should have made an announcement, but let's stay connected because I like this work." So lo and behold, Frances had just left her job. The recession had just hit. And she said, "Well, what are you guys up to?" And we were in a week going to South Africa as part of the beginning of our journey that we do with our exchange mission. And she said, "While you're there, I'm doing a program with Walgreens where I'd like to source some products that I could put in Walgreens." So we said, "Okay, we're going to do a dual mission. We're going to look for products for you, and we're going to be looking for artists to bring back." So long story short, we get to South Africa. We come back with some products that we think were ideal. She liked them, but the artists could not execute timely deliverables that Walgreens needed. And they were very demanding on what would turn out to be a project for them. She then said, "Well, this isn't working out. Andre, you're an artist. Why don't you do it?" And I'm telling you, that went from, "Oh, this could have been a nice little contract," to a 7,000 store contract.
Sheesh.
Where it was God intervening. And this was also a rare moment where the white vendors who had contracts with Walgreens, they would get paid up front. So if they had a 7,000 store, 200,000 unit contract, they would pay them before they sold. The black vendors had to swipe at the register before we got paid. So she said, why is it like that? Why don't the black vendors get paid up front?" And they're like, "Well, I don't know. I don't." So we were the first, and I want to forget the fancy name for it, but it in short meant we got paid up front.
Purchase order.
Purchase. And that story is really why Gallery Guichard is still here today, because many galleries closed at that time. And we were able to use that contract to allow us to continue to expand, still do the work that we did. And it was also a training ground, because as happy and excited as I was, we got this Walgreens contract, I would soon learn that every week they would have a hurdle that you could lose your contract if you didn't deliver. So it taught us problem solving. And, "Oh, we need a sample of the material you're going to use in 3 days to make sure there's no lead in it. And we have to have it by Friday. If you don't give it to us by Friday, contracts off. So it was that type of real time. How do you handle a problem? How do you not get nervous? And how do you figure it out? And we were able to deliver on that contract. And it would be one of the many great milestones of our gallery for me as an artist, because it was 5 images of my work that were on 5 on canvas tote bags that were around the country. So the recognition of my name, it was just a great business and artistic achievement. But most importantly, it was through the mentorship that we were able to navigate the ups and downs of corporate contracts.
Back to that 3 minutes on the wrestling mat. Remember the question?
There you go. There it is. Okay, give me the word. Okay, I got to do a chicken wing. The chicken wing didn't work. Okay, let me come back.
Yes.
Okay, I got to escape. I got to get out of here. Back up on the ground. Now we back up. Okay, I got to shoot. Got my double leg takedown. Now I'm going to run it. Now I'm wrestling Big Boss in my mind. 250 pounds. He lives on the block. But this guy's only 119, so I can handle him. Because Big Boss couldn't get, you know, so you're right. It's all those things, and it's that instinct that only athletes have, because everything's in slow motion, even though it's going like, you know, so good point.
Listen, we're so proud of you. We appreciate your efforts and we love you.
Thank you, brother.
Your contributions to our culture cannot be expressed in words, okay? Remember, you're our Black superheroes.
Thank you.
Share with the audience your social media handles. Where can we find you?
Gallery Guichard, Gallery_Guichard,
Instagram,
Andre Guichard,
Facebook,
and Frances Guichard, Andre Guichard at gmail.com. No, Andre Guichard 1911 at gmail.com for your Facebook, right?
email.
You're okay. And then Frances Guichard. And then we also have www.galleryguichard.com.
And Instagram, Gallery_Guichard, Facebook, Andre Guichard, Facebook, Frances Guichard, Instagram, Frances Guichard, and of course, www.galleryguichard.com is where all of our information is posted. But one thing we didn't mention, and I want to make sure that we do say this because it is about archiving, we do have the virtual exhibition catalogs on our website, which allow you to drop into 44 exhibitions just like it's opening night. And that happened during COVID, because that was the second major recession that was self-induced by our president. I'll still say past president, but we allow people to always have the option to be able to visit the gallery virtually, where you can come in and walk around and like it's day one of the opening, as well as talk to the artists, listen to artist talks in detail so they can educate you on what was the inspiration. So that section of our website is very important for education, because you can art binge and visit 44 new exhibits just like it's opening night.
I have a new term, art binge. Okay. Yes. Hey, I just want to thank you. We here at Chicago's ILLectuals podcast so appreciate you for being such gracious guest. For Andre and Frances Guichard, I am the Kid Rod Allen. This has been another episode of Chicago's ILLectuals podcast. Until next time, peace, peace. Take care.
Keep going with you, brother. You killing it, man. You are killing it.
Thank you.